So the last time I was in Scotland, I met with a man named David Hart, and he was a founder, one of two founders of this relatively new evangelistic push called simply Try Praying. Try Praying. And it began because of the atheistic push led by Richard Dawkins, where they plastered massive banners onto buses, double-decker buses and other buses, that simply said, you know, God probably, no, there is probably no God. So enjoy yourself, stop worrying, have fun, something like that. That's what it was. There's probably no God, stop worrying, and enjoy yourself. And so what they did, they just took the two words, try praying, and they began to plaster those banners up everywhere they could. And out of that came a remarkable amount of opportunities. In fact, this whole thing is sweeping the UK, where people are trying to pray. One story that came out of there was about a man who was just actually putting up a sign, a simple sign of try praying. And a lady asked him, do you think it's going to do any good? And so a conversation ensued, and the man ended up praying with her. Another gal named Julia Clapp, she was actually a Christian youth worker, but she was in on a trip to Spain, actually a little island off the coast of Spain, and she met there and got just engaged in a conversation with another tourist who looked like he was hurting. He actually had done some damage to his foot. Turns out he was a doctor, and he kind of knew that, he thinks he maybe broke his toes or something like that. And as they talked, the doctor said he wasn't sure that he believed in a God, and particularly that this God, if he did exist, probably didn't have much to do with him. Wasn't really concerned about him. But he said he really hurt his leg that day, and that he was finding it very difficult to walk. Probably broke his toes, he said, and he's a doctor, so he probably knew. Well, Julia, rather than trying to find him a walking stick, she summoned her courage up and said maybe she could pray to God for God to touch his foot. Well, he kept saying that he was unsure about this because God had bigger things to do. Nevertheless, Julia pressed in and said she thought God would really love to heal him, and that she would pray for him later, which she did. Now, about an hour later, they bumped into each other again, and he made a point of coming up to her, and he said that something had happened. Like, quite amazingly, his foot had suddenly gotten much, much better. And he demonstrated it by standing on his tiptoes. Now, this is quite a bit different from what happened earlier. And he even went so far as to say, it's a miracle, I think, and I'm going to have to check into this God thing when I get home. Julia said from that experience, she learned that God not only that she thought maybe he would heal, but that he actually can and did. From might heal to can and will. And that gave her much more boldness. I know of another story where a lady was standing in line in a pharmacy, and she was just waiting to get a prescription. She noticed that there's an older couple ahead of her. She noticed that they were really looking like they were worn down. And the woman in particular looked like she was having a hard time. And so she said, ma'am, is there anything I can do for you? Maybe get a chair for you or something like that? And they were very appreciative and all that. But the fella just said, well, my wife is just really worn down because she hasn't had a good sleep in years, but particularly not in months of any good sleep, lots of pain. And the lady said, well, you know what? I am a Christian. Could I pray for you? And they actually said yes, but they didn't know if that would really do anything. Well, at the end of that, they thanked her, and she gave him her number and said, call me if anything changes or anything like that, or if I can be of assistance. So anyway, the next day at around 10 in the morning, her phone rings, and it's this old man. And he said, what did you do to my wife? She has not had that kind of sleep. That was the best sleep she's had in ages. Well, and then the conversation ensued, and they just talked about the power of Jesus, that he really does love them and cares for them, and that it's just what an amazing conversation, just by simply reaching out. God is real, and sometimes he'll answer if you just try praying. It's like King David said in the story where his child was dying, and 2 Samuel 11:22 says that David said, who knows, maybe God will be gracious to me. In other words, who knows, maybe God will answer if we simply try praying.